Hi everyone, yasas que kalos irtate to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today I'm going to teach you how to make tahinopitakia. These are vegan tahini rolls or tahini buns that come from the island of Cyprus. They're so delicious. Like I said, they're vegan, so there's no dairy in them. This recipe makes 12 delicious tahini rolls. Let's get started. So in my mixing bowl over here, I'm going to add 1 cup of lukewarm water, 1/3 cup or 80 grams of granulated sugar, and 1.5 tablespoons of instant active yeast. Just mix that all up and set it aside until it proofs. Most of the time, yeast is fresh, it hasn't gone bad, but if it does go bad, your whole recipe will go to waste because if the yeast isn't good, the dough won't rise. So try not to ever skip this step. You'll know that it's ready and active once you see a nice foamy, bubbly layer on top of the water. You'll also smell the yeast. It smells really nice and active. So that's going to take about 8 minutes. I'm going to set that aside and I'm going to work on the remaining ingredients. So in my bowl over here, I'm going to add about 4 cups or 550 grams of all-purpose flour. And then we're going to need to grind up some mastica. Mastica, also known as mastic gum, is really hard to grind up because it becomes sticky. So I'm using a mortar and pestle today, but you can do this in a food processor. I'm going to add the mastic granules in here. You just need a little bit and a small amount of granulated sugar, and then they grind up really easily. If you're not going to use the sugar with it, it's just going to stick to your vessel. So grind that up, and then you could add it to your flour. If you prefer ground cardamom, you can use that instead of the mastica. So all we're using is 1/4 to 1/2 teaspoon, depending on how much of that flavor you want in there. Try not to add more, otherwise it gets a little bit bitter. So we're just going to whisk that all up, but before we do, we need the zest of 1 or 2 oranges. I don't have oranges today, but I do have these beautiful clementines. So I'm just going to zest 3 or 4 of them and put the zest in here. And then we're going to need the juice of the oranges. So you need about 1/3 cup of orange juice. You should always zest the citrus first and then juice it. You can't do it the other way around. So get 1/3 cup of juice in that little bowl. And I've also added a little pinch of salt to my flour mixture, and I whisked it all up and it's ready to go. So by now my yeast is looking really nice and active. I'm going to add 1/3 cup of orange juice to it, 1/2 cup of light olive oil, and all of this flour mixture. And with the dough hook attachment, I'm going to knead this on a low speed for about 8 minutes. Towards about the 4 or 5 minute mark, if your dough is still looking super sticky, you can go in and add 1/2 cup of flour to it and let it knead for another 3 or 4 minutes. It's still going to be a not very sticky dough, but it is going to be a kind of like a tacky dough. As soon as it's done kneading, you're going to put the dough into a bowl that's been greased with a couple of tablespoons of olive oil. And once you toss the dough in that olive oil, it's going to become more smooth. So don't worry about it. Don't add too much flour, otherwise your dough is going to be really tough. Cover the bowl with either a kitchen towel or some plastic wrap and set it aside in the warmest part of your house so it can double in volume. The tahini filling is so easy to make. I'm using 1 whole 11-ounce jar, which is 312 grams of tahini. I really love this brand. It's definitely not sponsored, but if you can get it, this is a really good brand to get. And Whole Foods 365 brand, that's also a really good brand to use. I've had tahini that's really bitter, so if I can share a good company with you guys that's going to help you out and make your recipe even better, I will. So that's what I'm using today. I might need a little bit more, so we'll take it as we go. Next, I'm going to add a very unconventional ingredient, but it makes this taste so good. I'm going to add about 6 tablespoons of pure maple syrup. You can add honey instead to make it more traditional. Then I'm going to add 1/2 cup of brown sugar. Use light or dark sugar, whichever one you have or love. I'm using a light brown sugar. Then I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of ground cinnamon and 2 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract. Whisk that all together, and then once it's all smooth and combined, it's ready to go. And now we're going to put the whole thing together. Okay, so carefully dust your counter or your work surface with a little bit of all-purpose flour and transfer the dough, which has risen and it's beautiful right now and easy to work with. Just go ahead and transfer it to your work surface and divide it into 8 equal portions. I like to divide it into 3 portions first, and then each one of the portions can be divided in 4. That way you have 12 equal portions. You're going to take each one at a time and you're going to roll it out as thin as possible. It could be as close to a circle as you can get it, but it doesn't have to be perfect because this is going to be rolled up into a spiral anyway. Then you're gonna add about 2 tablespoons of that tahini mixture on top of the dough that's been rolled out. But if the tahini mixture is a little bit too thin, you could definitely add a little bit of warm water to it to thin it out so it's spreadable. Just get it to a spreadable consistency. And now you can top it with whatever you like. I have these toppings here that I'm gonna be working with. I have some shredded sweetened coconut. I have some toasted pecans that have been finely chopped. They're also combined with a little bit of sweetened coconut that's been toasted that I had left over from my Italian cream cake that I made the other day. I'll post that recipe down below too. I have some chocolate chips here and some raisins. You can use whatever you like on this. So once you put the layer of tahini on top, you can put your favorite toppings. A good combination is raisins and pecans. And then once you put that on there, just roll it up. And then once you're done rolling it up, you're gonna roll it into a rope. So just roll it so that way it's a little bit thinner and longer, and then twist it. You can twist it as you're rolling it or twist it after you roll it, and then you're gonna roll it up into a spiral. It's just gonna give it such beautiful texture, and put it on a baking tray that's lined with parchment paper. The next one I'm gonna roll out as thin as I can, just like I did before. Put that beautiful creamy tahini mixture on top. And on this one, I'm gonna put some chocolate chips. I have some semi-sweet chocolate chips and sweetened coconut. It's a really nice combination. Roll that up and then twist it and then roll it into a spiral. You can make 12 of these, 6 on each tray. Once you're done rolling these up and assembling them, you can brush them with a little bit of water. Where the tips connect, also make sure to brush a little bit of water to help them stick so that way the edges and the tips don't burn. Brush it with a little bit of water, and then I have a little bit of cinnamon sugar here that I'm just gonna sprinkle on top. The oven should be preheated to 375 degrees Fahrenheit. These are gonna bake on the center rack for about 25 minutes or until they're beautifully golden all around. If you want a softer tahini bun, sort of similar to like a cinnamon roll, like an American cinnamon roll, then you can reduce the temperature, the oven's temperature, to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And before putting them in, let them sit at room temperature after they're assembled and everything like that. Let them sit at room temperature so they can get a little bit puffy for about 30 minutes, and then put them in and bake them until they're beautifully golden all around. It's probably gonna take about 35 minutes or so at 350 degrees Fahrenheit. These are gonna smell amazing. They're gonna be so beautiful. While they were baking, I made a little glaze to put on top, a nice sweet little glaze with some confectioner sugar, about 1.5 cups of confectioner sugar. I added the juice of half a little clementine that I had left over from before. You could add more orange juice if you want. And I also added a few tablespoons of maple syrup to reach the desired consistency. I like for the glaze to be nice and thick so that way it sticks to the tahini roll when it comes out, and it'll still be nice and warm. If you make it thin, it'll kind of soak in, and if that's how you like it, you could do that. Your house, your rules, your kitchen, your rules. But these are best served slightly warm or at room temperature. They smell delicious. They're gonna taste amazing. Like I said, this isn't the really traditional recipe because there's no maple syrup in Greek tahini rolls, but I wanted to make them a little bit Americanized and a little bit more fall-like. That's why I added that in here. But if you prefer the honey, it won't be vegan, but you can add it if you'd like. I hope you guys give this recipe a try. Play around with the filling and let me know what fillings you're gonna add in the comment section down below. You can print out this recipe on the website, dimitrasdishes.com. Before we leave, let's do the taste test. I'm gonna try the one with the chocolate and the coconut because I love that combination. So good. The tahini is nutty. The cinnamon and the chocolate and the coconut all go so well together. You guys are gonna absolutely love these. They store well at room temperature since there's no dairy in them. If you're gonna serve them the next day with coffee or something like that, you can toast them in the oven for a few minutes and they're gonna be delicious. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Yes, us.